Oh, it's been a while since I've posted. Hello. I got sick again, so that's not really fun. Anyway, uh, deadlifts. Let's talk about deadlifts. This pertains more towards beginners. Now, there's a lot of things I want to cover today, so it might be a lot, but have you noticed that you've been deadlifting for, let's say, a couple of months? This is mostly targeted towards beginners as well as early intermediates, and sure, you're kind of getting a bit stronger, but you're not really building that much muscle or more muscle than you thought, or you don't look as aesthetic as you thought. And what if I just told you that this is a relatively poor exercise choice for your goals? Let me tell you what you should do. Now, obviously, this video and channel pertains more towards hypertrophy, so I'm going to focus on that. But if you want to build a stronger posterior chain, which is your lower back, glutes, and hamstrings, yeah, deadlifts are great. They're awesome. Bang for your buck wise, probably the best exercise. If you want to build more what they call functional strength and functionality as well as sport specific strength, the trap bar deadlift is an awesome exercise as well. Here's the thing though, if your goal is to build more muscle and to be more aesthetic, I think it's one of the poorer exercises to choose. And hear me out, okay? You can still build a lot of muscle deadlifting. The problem is, number one, you're not targeting a specific muscle. So if you were to, let's say, deadlift 100 kilos for 5 reps and you give out after 5, what actually gives out first? Is it your lower back? Is it your core stability? Is it your glutes? Is it your hamstring mobility? There's just too many things. Now, obviously with deadlifts as well, there's sumo versus conventional. So depending on which stance you use, it targets different muscles as well. So there's a big problem with that already. And the stimulus to fatigue ratio is also dreadful. So when you put those two together, what exactly are you really training? Well, sure, you're getting stronger. You are building stronger lower back, glutes, or hamstrings, but more often than not, for most people, their grip fails first. So you're not even getting close to hitting mechanical tension or mechanical failure, sorry, for any of those three. Obviously, if you throw on straps, that's a different story, and we can talk about that too. But assuming that you deadlift raw, which is what a lot of people do and recommend and say, oh, don't use straps, they're for pussies. Well, then your grip's probably going to give out first. Like, it doesn't matter how strong you are. Even if you can deadlift 220 kilos, you can deadlift significantly more if you use straps. So herein lies the problem already. There's too many limiting factors. Now, if you're deadlifting for 8 reps, more often than not, you run out of breath first. So that's the other thing. Your cardio gives out. You're not, again, getting close to mechanical tension for a muscle group. Now, talking about stimulus to fatigue ratio, that's something I bang on and on about, and I think it's really important to talk about because it is important for hypertrophy. Yes, sure, a lot of gym bros will be like, no, man, don't be a pussy. Like, you got to squat, you got to deadlift, you got to bench. It's like, sure, they're great exercises, but are they efficient? Are they optimal? Do you think about what's the easiest way, the most minimum amount of work you have to do to get to a good physique? That's exactly what your goal should be, to get as aesthetic as possible, right? Why are you trying to force yourself to go through pain or train super hard for less reward? That just makes no logical sense. And hey, look, I'm all for squatting, deadlifting. I did that for years. I did that for 6, 7 years. I really enjoyed squatting. I really enjoyed deadlifting, but I started racking up more injuries. I didn't get as more aesthetic. After I think the 3, 4 year mark, I really didn't build that much more muscle, despite getting stronger. A lot of the gains are neuromuscular. So what's the point in that if my goal is to be as aesthetic as possible, right? And on top of that, if you're accumulating so much more fatigue for barely any stimulus, hypertrophy wise, is that worth your time? Is it worth your effort? I don't know. You need to ask yourself, is it your ego talking, or do you genuinely just want to build more muscle? Okay. The other thing with deadlifts, you have to build really good technique. So the deadlift, if done properly, is actually a very technical movement. And the idea is that you want to lift more weight. And when you want to lift more weight, what do? You end up trying to use technique to be more optimal and be more efficient at lifting the weight. What does that therefore end up doing? Means that you recruit more and more muscle fibers throughout your body to help you with the exercise. So if you're really good at deadlifting, you might end up being able to help get get your lats involved just a little bit to help you be more stable. That's not exactly uh, helpful for hypertrophy. It doesn't create what we call progressive tension overload. Well, it kind of does, but for across all muscle groups. And that's not really necessarily what you want when you get towards the intermediate advanced stage, because the fatigue you incur is insanely high for how much you can lift. So if someone deadlifts, let's say 250 kilos compared to someone who deadlifts 120, there's a massive difference in how much fatigue the first lifter incurs. So you need to be smarter and smarter about your training and create less fatigue. So that lies herein lies another problem with the deadlift. Now, if you also deadlift with poor form, you're more likely to get injured. When you're injured, what does that mean? You're set back more. You're not able to train as much. You lose out on gains again. So the idea is that we want to do as little work as possible to build as much muscle as possible. And when I say little work, I don't mean therefore not squatting, not deadlifting, and training for hypertrophy is less work. That is absolutely not what I mean. Training for hypertrophy is not easy. You need to get close to failure, but it's for the target muscle, right? So you want to isolate certain muscle groups, generally speaking, to help you get towards mechanical tension or mechanical failure for the specific muscle. If you want to target back growth, focus on your lat pull downs, focus on your assisted chin ups, focus on doing pull ups, chin ups, these things that really target your lats. If you want to build a better, well, this also hits your lats too, seated rows, but it also depends on how you do it. So lat pull down, it's the same thing, lat pull down and seated rows. Technically speaking, depending on your grip width, how much you flare your elbows, how much you elevate your shoulders, that also means that you're going to hit maybe the mid back more so than the lats. So depending on your technique, that also matters. But generally for back growth, we'd probably use those. Now, if you want your lower back to grow more, then okay, we'll do hyperextensions and as well as your spinal erectors, sorry, not just lower back. Hyperextensions, good mornings that can help with those. If your goal is to target your glutes, okay, you're going to want to use hip thrusts or Bulgarian split squats, which can really target your glutes more effectively. For hamstrings, RDLs and leg curls. It's that simple. And thing is, sure, you can have even more exercise variation, that's okay. But if you stick to these basics and just get really close to failure, you will grow. And you also incur a lot less fatigue for much more stimulus hypertrophy wise. So why wouldn't you do that? It's just so much more efficient and technically less taxing on your body. Don't forget your joints too. Have you ever squatted for couple months, years, usually years, deadlift for years, and you start to get joint pain? Yeah, it's because you're lifting super heavy weight and overuse really is a thing. So the great thing about hypertrophy as well is that exercise variation allows your body to change up the way it moves, which helps with preventing joint overuse. And that more or less sums up what I think about the deadlift. Now, to conclude, what I'm going to say is if your goal is to build more function, to move better, and to build more overall strength, as well as move sport specific strength, sure, I think the barbell deadlift, barbell deadlift, conventional or sumo, and trap bar deadlift are great exercises, and I still incorporate these into my for my clients, depending on what their goals are. But most of my clients just want to look better, and if that's the case, I don't even bother teaching them how to deadlift. Ideally, they learn how to RDL first, and I will always get people to RDL if they want to have bigger hamstrings, and we go from there. Uh, if I were to teach the deadlift, that's the thing. To teach someone how to deadlift properly, there was one client that I had, and I spent many months to not perfect, like no one has perfect technique, but to make it relatively good. Yeah, it took a while, and we had to take out a lot of things from the program because deadlifts are really taxing. So we couldn't really do other exercises. You're putting a lot of eggs into the deadlift, and that's the other thing. Okay, so you need to consider that as well. The stimulus to fatigue ratio is also horrible. It's probably one of the most tiring exercises, the most taxing, but the least amount of, I shouldn't say least amount, but the ratio is just not great in terms of how much stimulus you get for hypertrophy. Sure, as a beginner, it's going to be great, but later on, it's just not worth it. Bang for your buck wise. As for hypertrophy, yeah, stick to specific targeting specific muscle groups. So let's say, for example, the bench press. Really good for hitting your pecs. But if you start to lift more like a power lifter where you arch a lot more, then you start to incorporate other muscle groups. Like you're using leg drive to help. You're using your core to truly help you drive with the weight. Your triceps, front delts, chest, everything gets involved. And that's how you'll notice that a lot of powerlifters don't end up with really big pecs compared to, let's say, a bodybuilder who benches like a bodybuilder. And technique is also really important there too. And sorry, that didn't particularly pertain towards the video itself, but it's the same with the deadlift. If your goal is actually just to build bigger glutes and hamstrings, then why don't you change it up to, let's say, doing a hip thrust and then supplementing it with RDLs or leg curls, depending on which one's more of a priority for you to grow. If your goal is to build a better lower back, target it. Use hyperextension. It's just so much less taxing than a deadlift. Now, before everyone goes off and says, oh, but the deadlift is amazing. Yes, I do agree. The deadlift is amazing and it really does hit a lot of body parts. And if you're a beginner slash early intermediate who still focuses on aesthetics, I think the deadlift can absolutely be there if your form and technique is good and you really enjoy doing it. Why not? Okay, there's way more factors into throwing in a specific exercise than one thing. You should really question why an exercise is in your program. And a good coach should be able to tell you that. A good influencer should be able to tell you that. Why have they thrown an exercise into a specific program? I know that was a lot. I kind of went off on different tangents, but I hope that answers some of y'all's questions on whether or not a deadlift is necessary for you. For now, peace.